The end of World War II saw the release of wartime equipment and declassified data. This included devices and data from anti-submarine warfare, which recorded ocean sounds for echolocation and enemy presence detection. But there was a strange disturbance in these recordings. Snapping shrimp, spawning fishes, and echolocating dolphins. Scientists suddenly realized that the underwater was a very noisy space, and soon would start listening to this noise for research. But how would this change what we knew about our natural world? And why are we still listening to underwater sounds today? The year was 2014. India's marine product export had reached an all-time high at 10 million tons worth Rs 33,000 crore. Isha Bapardikar had been helping friends conduct surveys with fishermen in Sindhudurg, but she was filled with a curiosity about how dolphins sound underwater. Until she recorded the sounds herself.
And I was like, just curiosity, I think, of how these animals would sound underwater. And then I actually got a chance to listen to them because a friend of ours had a hydrophone that she lent us.
At the Lakshadweep coast, Divya Panikar, who was sighting dolphins, had a similar interest.
We found blue whale calls in the data set, and which confirmed that there were live blue whales using the area and singing in the area. And we found that most of the songs were during April and May. And we also saw the North Indian Ocean blue whale song, pygmy blue whale songs.
Both turned to bioacoustic monitoring to know more, and when they listened to the sounds, the ocean threw back a plethora of noisy information.
In this area, we were hearing fish choruses, snapping shrimp choruses.
I thought, oh, now that we have these sounds, what should we do with it? We need to learn how to analyze them.
Soon, they were not just detecting species.
I look at aspects of habitat use and distribution of dolphins as well as whales. For my PhD, I used bioacoustics to try and understand whale and dolphin distributions in Lakshadweep.
My current study is using acoustics to understand animal densities, estimate animal densities, occurrence patterns, and habitat use for two species. That's the humpback dolphin and the finless porpoise.
As marine biologists, Isha and Divya analyze acoustic data to study behavioral patterns in marine species. This is possible because sound travels faster and further in water than in air. There's also the fact that underwater species choose to communicate in their natural habitat.
More than 90% of their lives happens below the water surface. We only get a little glimpse into their lives when they come at the surface. So they constantly produce sounds. Like they use sounds to interact with each other. They use sounds to navigate. They use sounds for finding food, for prey detection. So they use acoustics as a primary sensory modality. They use it to interact with each other and their environment. And you can actually use the sounds that they produce to understand more about their life.
Recording devices called hydrophones are dropped in water to record lower and higher frequency sounds. Hydrophones record this data for days to years sometimes. And then this data is analyzed through spectrograms to learn about a species and its vocalizations, with some hiccups in place.
You put in a very shiny, like black instrument or whatever, and it comes out like multicolored, full of stuff. And you were spending hours trying to get it out so that you can deploy the same instrument later.
But animal sounds aren't the only thing one hears underwater.
And then mostly what I hear is the boat. I've recorded boat noise a lot of times, and it does overlap with a lot of the dolphin frequency.
Anthrophonic sounds, or human sounds, increase as ships and boats enter these waters. In traffic-dense ecosystems like rivers, it becomes important to listen for the impact these sounds might have on species. To To understand this impact, Mayuk has been listening to river dolphins in the floodplains of the Ganga River in Bihar.
If you have lots of traffic, then, in a loud place, in a crowded place, you need to shout. A similar analogy. We would expect dolphins to compensate by increasing their loudness, how loud they speak. It's probably changing their frequencies, how long they call. All of these vary. But what we found was actually the opposite. As you've had more consistent vessels moving over the season, the water level, we've actually seen them not vocalize as much, compared to their baseline level.
Since rivers are low visibility ecosystems, river dolphins evolved to have low vision and excellent echolocation, relying entirely on sound. But anthrophony impacts this efficiency.
If you speak loudly for 2 minutes, you start panting. The same applies to dolphins. So in these really chronic situations, dolphins don't really echolocate. And that can have potential consequences in terms of how much they feed, how do they communicate, where do they navigate. And because they need sound to navigate, and you've got these shallow river and vessels flying, chances of vessel collision and mortality probably increase.
Anyone who lives near a train track or an airport will know what sound can actually do in terms of having a constant noise being introduced into an ecosystem.
So bioacoustic data can indicate the impact of human sounds on aquatic soundscapes. But it is also telling us about something that impacts both human and marine life: climate change. Rising sea levels, warmer waters, erratic weather patterns all affect the geophoning of underwater ecosystems.
It has two ways that climate change can impact, right? Like one is where it actually impacts the habitat, right? Leads to a low number of animals or a low number of a particular species. You could also think of it in a pathway where it's directly impacting the acoustics itself. It may not directly impact the numbers immediately, but it impacts behavioral responses.
But the difficulty has been in getting initial data to understand the extent and magnitude of these changes.
Could be affecting them quite a bit. It's just that we don't have that information. We don't even have baseline information on the acoustic behavior of this animal. We don't know a lot of details, fine scale details. So there's a lot to do, and it's barely the surface gets scratched.
Fish are completely understudied. So, for example, we had river dolphins in the 1970s. We had this person, Dr. Pileri, who had taken dolphins from Pakistan to Switzerland, I suppose, and kept them in tanks for 2 years, 3 dolphins. And that is where we have most of our information from, of their feeding. What do these clicks mean? Even if we record sounds in the river system or marine systems, often we do not know what behavior it relates to. And that is something we can only do if we observe them.
So while we have heard a lot of the ocean since World War II, to understand and save our oceans, we need to keep tuning in.